Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.
So, you just started using LinkedIn Premium. Now what? Well, on your premium company page, you noticed around 7.5 times more page engagement and 5 times more page views. Well done. And now, new clients are messaging you. All because you're using LinkedIn Premium, which helps you get the business growth you want. Think big, small business. Think big. Start your free trial at linkedin.com/premium small business. That's linkedin.com/premium small business.
Look, all I'm saying is, given my druthers between spending the weekend in Glasgow or being lost forever in the Bermuda Triangle, I'm simply going to have to choose the triangle. It's awful up there. Terrible. Full of Scots.
The following podcast contains...
But swearing and using dirty words is not one of my vices. I don't use foul language, and I don't like to hear anyone else use it either.
explicit language.
Hello and welcome to the podcast that asks a simple question. When you create an entire mythology just for insurance purposes, what the hell were you thinking? I'm your host, Dave Bledsoe, and this is episode number 440, the Booze Cruise of the Bermuda Triangle edition of the show, where we're talking about the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle, by which we mean the mystery of that time in the 1970s when everyone was obsessed with the Bermuda Triangle. Stay tuned. What the Hell You Thinking podcast is brought to you by the Eternal Cruise Lines, offering one-way trips to unspecified destination for the ultimate getaway. The trials of modern life grow more and more hectic each day, and who hasn't dreamt of getting away from it all? At Eternal Cruise Lines, you can. Book now on one of our luxury cruises and simply sail off into the sunset. Where are you going? How long will you be gone? Will you ever come home? Who knows? Maybe you'll come home next week, maybe never. Eternal Cruise Lines has ships departing from New York, Miami, Galveston, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Check our schedule for departure dates and cruise packages. Concerned about costs? Don't be. Just sign over power of attorney to one of our Eternal Cruise Lines helpful legal stewards and leave your worries behind. Eternal Cruise Lines. Isn't it time to leave it all behind?
The south coastal beaches of Florida bask in the warm Caribbean breezes. But the tranquil waters might obscure a mysterious phenomenon that preys on those who venture into the coastal area. A United States Air Force bomber disappeared in 1968. More than 1,000 lives have been lost under circumstances that cause veteran sailors to become uneasy traversing these waters. For ships like the Proteus have disappeared without a trace. Whatever it is that haunts the waters between the Florida coast, the islands of Bermuda, and the Bahamas has claimed cargo craft like the White Sulphur Queen. In the open waters of the Atlantic Ocean, there abides a phenomenon difficult to explain. A danger zone that seems to swallow ships and planes. No one has found a satisfactory answer. But somewhere in this region, between the sea and the sky, lurks the solution to the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle.
When someone asked me, Dave, when was the best decade to be a kid?
Literally never done that.
I always answer the 1970s. I say this because it was the last decade in America where a kid could go about their day-to-day lives without living in fear.
I am occasionally afraid there might be a shark.
Okay, fair point. Many of us were actually afraid of sharks because our uncles took us to see Jaws at far too young of an age. What I mean is the 1970s, kids didn't live under the cloud of dread and suspicion from everything. By the 1980s, there were dudes in
windowless vans
parked on every corner. Satanists were trying to steal our immortal souls for their godless role-playing games. And it was a pretty safe bet that a drug dealer was going to give you free heroin on your way to your third-grade homeroom.
Let's drug some kids.
But during the 70s, when statistically speaking, there were way more serial killers, rampant pedophilia in the Catholic Church, and everyone drove drunk all the time, including the carpool to school, us kids were blissfully unaware of it all. We lived our lives riding our bikes on the highway with no helmet, playing with gasoline and matches, or just being the altar boys at the local parish without fear. It was a great way to go through life. Now, I don't want to say that we were totally unaware that there were, in fact, dangers in the world. For example, pretty much all of us were concerned that we would inadvertently fall into quicksand and die.
Avoid quicksand.
Ask any Gen Xer, and if we can hear you over this persistent tinnitus ringing in our ears obtained from listening to music at concerts louder than jet engines, or in my case, listening to actual jet engines, and we'll tell you that it was the one thing that we were all pretty sure was a clear and pleasant danger in our lives.
You'd stop watching so goddamn much television.
It was the 1970s. TV was all we had. And TV taught us that quicksand was everywhere, and that if you just stepped in some, that was it. You were done. Slow death, reaching in vain for a tree root just beyond your grasp. This is actually a near impossibility for a human being to actually sink in quicksand, since it provides far more buoyancy than water, and pretty much the only way you can actually die in quicksand is for you to stick your head under it and intentionally inhale it into your lungs. But you know, there was one thing scarier than quicksand in the 1970s.
Your priest?
No, I'm talking about our topic for this week. Because our topic this week is that time America became obsessed with the Bermuda Triangle back in the 1970s. I mean, people were into a lot of weird shit in the 70s. Pet rocks, disco, crippling inflation. And this show has done a lot of work in that area.
Wow, you seem really proud of yourself.
That's what the show is all about, trying to figure out why we are like we are. But this particular fad baffled me then, and it baffles me now, because going to the Bermuda Triangle is an opt-in experience. It's not like getting rectally probed by an extraterrestrial in a cow pasture.
I volunteer.
No, I volunteer.
So let's dig in and see what we can find. Let's begin with what we know to be true about the Bermuda Triangle.
Stupid. That's complete bullshit.
So you should take that with you going forward. The Triangle
Allegedly
consists of an area in the Atlantic Ocean around 1 million square miles in a triangle with points that originated in Puerto Rico, then run to Miami, then out to Bermuda, and back down to Puerto Rico. Some people extend the triangle as far as the Irish Sea, but no one takes them very seriously.
as opposed to
serious triangle researchers? Now, if you look at the area on a map, you will note that aside from the southwestern limb of the triangle, the majority of the area is open ocean, several hundred miles from the nearest land. This is not to say that the triangle is empty. As I wrote this paragraph, there were well over 100 ships of varying sizes traversing the triangle and dozens of aircraft overhead.
Is that a lot?
Well, there are busier areas to be sure, but each day thousands and thousands of people traverse the area and arrive safely at their destination. This has been the case for centuries, as the triangle encompasses the approaches to the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, and the Atlantic coast of North and South America. It's also the very simple reason why so many ships and planes have disappeared in this area. A lot of them go through it.
God, how is that scary? Well,
It's not. It's just what it is. Furthermore, as anyone who lives on the eastern coast of this hemisphere, we all know about the stretch of ocean because this is where little baby storms grow up to be big, strong hurricanes.
They grow up so fast.
As tropical waves come off the Cape of Africa, they slide west into the tropical waters of the Triangle before moving to Florida like a Long Islander in retirement. So, for about 5 months out of the year, traversing the Triangle can be dicey even in modern times. Back in the days of sail, countless ships simply disappeared without a trace because they sailed right into a storm. So the waters developed a dire reputation among sailors, who, as we all know, are a superstitious lot even today. I mean, I know some ex-Navy guys who can make your hair stand on end with their stories.
Hookers, booze, shooting holes in the ceiling, screaming myself to sleep.
They also have some occasionally spooky stories about life on the sea. Started in the 1940s, rumors and tales began to grow about what they called the Devil's Triangle.
arms. I like it. A lot means big bush. I like a big bush.
A series of disappearances occurred all just within a few years of one another that was eventually written up by the Associated Press in a 1950 story. Quote, "It's a small world. No, it's still the same vast globe that the ancients knew was the same misty limbo of the lost. We think it's small because of speeding wheels and wings and the voice of radio, which comes out of the void. A mile is only a minute's travel by wheel and a few seconds' flight, but it is still a mile. The miles add up to the vast unknown into which hundreds and more persons have flown or sailed within brief memory to be swallowed up just as ships were swallowed in the old sailing days. Where are the men and women and 2 babies, 32 persons in all, who happily boarded a plane at San Juan, Puerto Rico and flew 1,000 miles towards Miami? A radio message at 4 a.m. December 7, 27, 1948 reported them 50 miles south of their goal. They never arrived. Searchers scanned 310,000 miles of sea and land, but the elusive limbo into which they flew was on no map. On January 18, 1949, a great task force of the United States Navy was on maneuvers south of Bermuda. That same day, a British airliner, the Ariel, vanished into thin air through which it flew. The plane had left Bermuda with 20 persons on board on its way from London to Chile. The naval force abandoned its maneuvers. Aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers combed the waters with thousands of pairs of sharp eyes on watch. An older but more perplexing mystery is that of 5 torpedo planes. They took off from the Navy's Fort Lauderdale Air Station December 5th, 1945 for a navigational training flight. The hours passed and darkness fell. Anxious officers called to them by radio and were answered only with silence. Unquote. Dramatic motherfucker, isn't he? These disappearances set off a small but excited group of folks who began digging around and looking for more information. The analog media equivalent of conspiracy theorists doing their own research on YouTube.
Welcome to the inside of my mind, sheeple.
A mere 2 years later, a magazine called Fate, which only sounds like an emo zine from 1996, but was actually the forerunner of the Weekly World News type of paper.
Hey, Mom, I find it interesting that you refer to the Weekly World News as the paper. The paper contains facts.
In which an author known only by the name of George X.
Curse that Elon Musk.
Wrote a short article called Sea Mystery at Our Back Door, which for the first time outlined the parameters of the triangle we have today. Some go as far back as the world's most incompetent navigator and noted slaver.
I, Christopher Columbus,
who reported some strange shit when he was passing through the triangle on his way to India, which I should point out is nowhere near fucking Bermuda. Chris wrote in his logs, quote, "A great flame of fire crashed into the sea one night, and that a strange light appeared in the distance a few weeks later." Unquote.
Chris, you're drunk. Go home.
Stories of mysterious doings percolated through the UFO community all through the 1950s and 60s, largely in the kind of magazines that nerds bought to hide their porn while they were reading it. It was in 1964 that the name Bermuda Triangle was coined by author and researcher named Vincent Gaddis in Argosy magazine, a long-running publication that had become a pulp fiction mill by the time Gaddis was published. Quoting the opening lead, quote, "What is there about this particular slice of the world that has destroyed hundreds of ships and planes without a trace?" Unquote. And going on to catalog a litany of disappearances over the most recent decades. Gaddis would expand on the article in a book called Invisible Horizons later that year. And the success of this book opened the door for others, authors of greater and lesser stature, to start churning out Bermuda Triangle books by the bushel, leading into the 1970s.
Oh, groovy, smashing, yay capitalism.
Quoting now from groovyhistory.com, quote, "In 1969, John Wallace Spencer released Limbo of the Lost. In 1974, Richard Weiner published The Devil's Triangle, and that same year, Charles Berlitz wrote The Bermuda Triangle, which became a bestseller. All of these books continued to espouse supernatural causes for the mysteries," unquote. In case you didn't know, and you didn't, Charles Berlitz was the dude that made the whole buzz really go. Berlitz was a scion of the Berlitz School of Languages and a paranormal expert. And Berlitz's book linked the triangle to other popular themes in the time, including the proto-meme of
I give you the legendary lost city of Atlantis.
Because like peanut butter and chocolate, these two entirely fictional places ignite the imagination of Americans who were in a very, very weird place in the 1970s. As this show likes to point out, Hollywood has a nose for pop culture trends and an eye for ways to capitalize on them. The Bermuda Triangle is no different. While the origin of the myth are firmly in the Ludi side of pseudoscience, the sudden boom in triangle interest is purely a product of Tinseltown. Starting in 1971 with the documentary called The Devil's Triangle, narrated by none other than Vincent motherfucking Price. God damn, that dude shows up everywhere. If it's spooky, you're going to find Vince.
The Atlantic Ocean claims innumerable ships and airplanes. Some of her shores are littered with telltale wreckage. But there is an area where the beaches are not strewn with the debris of ill-fated ships and planes, even though it is a minute sector of the vast Atlantic, where numerous ships vanish off the face of the earth, where countless planes never reach their destination, and where hundreds of yachts never return to port. This is the Devil's Triangle.
Soon enough, cheap made-for-TV movies and low-budget documentaries either about or set in the Triangle began to be churned out. 1975, Satan's Triangle and the Bermuda and Beyond the Bermuda Triangle. 1976's The Way of the Wind, Mysteries from Beyond the Triangle, and Airport 77. Airport 77 saw the plane crash of the year in the Triangle, though it was international art thieves in a fog bank that caused the airplane to crash. Starship Invasion in 1977 saw aliens arriving on Earth and using the Triangle as their base of operations, which, as we all know, is entirely true. 1978 gave us the Bermuda Depths and the Cave of Sharks, and this is not counting all the foreign films that were released in the States with the obligatory bad dubbing and laughable script. Television loved the Triangle, and it popped up over long-running series of the day. The Fantastic Journey featured an early ancestor of the TV shows Lost, with travelers stranded on a mysterious island located within the Triangle. Tales of the Unexpected, Wonder Woman, The Hardy Boys' Nancy Drew Mysteries, Space Academy, and who could forget Fantasy Island, which waited until 1981 to dip their toes in the Triangle lore.
Welcome to Fantasy Island.
I gotta put Fantasy Island in the top of copper. But pod friends, for my money, the finest representation of the Bermuda Triangle movie came in 1978 when Rankin Bass, the production company behind a slew of trippy children's television specials, including The Hobbit and so many weird-ass Christmas shows, gave us the Bermuda Depths, in which, God, where do I even begin? I'll just let the IMDb summary tantalize you with the awesomeness of this movie. Quote, traumatized. Orphan college dropout Magnus Dens returns to Bermuda to find the cause of his father's mysterious death years before. At the Bermuda Biological Station, he finds Eric and Dr. Paulus, friends and colleagues of his late father, and joins them on a quest for gigantic sea creatures. He also meets Jenny Hanover, a mysterious young woman who was once his only childhood friend. Dr. Paulus's housekeeper, an island local, warns Magnus that Jenny is dangerous. But the beautiful but vain young woman has sold her soul to the devil centuries before and lives forever behind young, goddamn, and lives forever young, deep in the waters of the Devil's Triangle, a.k.a. the Bermuda Triangle. Nobody heeds the folklore, and the researchers trap the giant sea turtle, setting the stage for a deadly confrontation with both minions of the devil, unquote. Normally, I would play you the trailer of the movie, but it truly needs to be seen to appreciate it, so I'm just going to play this little snippet of expositional dialogue.
You know who she is?
Oh, we all know her. She's been with us a long time. Some see her as a little girl. Others as a young woman. There are even those who say they've seen her swim like a serpent.
What are you talking about? The girl I met lives on the island.
She lives out there.
You mean she lives on another island?
Oh, no. Out where he lives.
He?
The place you people call the Triangle.
Pod friends, this film has everything. Sirens from the sea, giant diabolical sea turtles, Rankin Bass veteran Burl Ives and a young Carl Weathers, R.I.P. Carl, just chewing fucking scenery. I cannot tell you how much you need to smoke a nice big fat joint, put this on, and let your mind be blown by how fucking awful, amazing, and delightful this turd of a movie is. And pod friends, there was even a Bermuda Triangle board game from Milton Bradley, where according to the box description, quote, Bermuda Triangle, the legendary area of the Atlantic Ocean where dozens of ships and planes have disappeared without explanation, is the setting of this exciting game of suspense. The sinister mystery cloud hovers, weaves and sweeps, swallowing some ships as it passes. Can you make it home with your cargo, or will your fleet become just one more victim of the Bermuda Triangle, the intriguing game of vanishing ships, unquote. By God, when you have reached cheesy board game status, you have officially... Looks like we made it. If you're interested, you can buy a copy of this game used on eBay today for around $30. I might just spend your Patreon money on that. This is even mentioning the myriad unsolved mystery type shows that delved into the Bermuda Triangle, including our opening tape, In Search Of, featuring Leonard Nimoy, the official arbiter of weird shit back when I was growing up.
The greatest number of calls concern overdue boats. Some cases stem simply from the anxiety of shorebound relatives. Others are caused by the vast number of inexperienced weekend sailors, long on daring, but short on navigation skills. And then there are the other cases, the disappearances that cannot be explained. They occur most often in a triangle-shaped wedge bounded by Florida, the Bahamas, and the island of Bermuda, the so-called Bermuda Triangle.
And as these breathy, utterly unquestioning documentaries came out, naturally came the shows debunking the documentaries. In 1978, PBS's Nova issued their own debunking, quoting now from a New York Times review of the show in 1978, quote, Public Television's Nova series offers an effective debunking demonstration tonight at 8 p.m. on Channel 13 with the case of the Bermuda Triangle. This Nova examination, produced by the British Broadcasting Corporation by Graham Massey, will have none of the standard titillation. As good science series should, it is calm, methodical, and pointedly unsensational. The program is obviously on the side of Lawrence Kusch, who has written a book challenging the traditional mystery theories. The thrust of Mr. Kusch's theses is that the story of the Bermuda Triangle has developed like folklore, with convenient deletions and additions being made from storyteller to storyteller. Planes and ships were indeed lost in the area, but many of the chroniclers somehow failed to note that the weather conditions may have been exceptionally bad at the time. Or certain provocative statements supporting the mystery theories turn out to be, on close examination, to be untraceable. The tracing by Nova is painstaking, and as detail is piled on detail, the case for debunking becomes extremely convincing, unquote. But none of this really explains the sudden explosion of interest in the topic of the Bermuda Triangle. To do that, you pretty much have to say,
with a lot of people who are doing drugs.
I mean, that is the super simple explanation, sure, but the Bermuda Triangle was but a piece of the pie in the 1970s, particularly the first half of the decade. You see, coming off the counterculture revolution of the 1960s, the domestic unrest of that decade, a lot of people were looking for new explanations for the shit going on in the world. Now, some went for self-inspections like Earhart seminars or various forms of therapy. Others turned to religion. An explosion of occults, big and small, spread through the country. Some centered on traditional religions like the Jesus Freaks, but some got into Eastern religions in a big way. Then some came up with a completely different idea. For example, the Heaven's Gate cult got its start in the 1970s, and it peaked, well, in the 90s, which, you know how that turned out. And the whole cult movement peaked with one Reverend Jim Jones and his little adventure in Guyana. See episodes number 288 and 289 of our show for our deep dive into that topic.
That's a plug.
Paranormal studies and the attendant hucksterism exploded with UFOs, Bigfoot, pyramid power, crystals, tarots, and all the associated bullshit suddenly becoming mainstream. Several of my aunts had books lying around that I picked up that detailed how aliens built the pyramids using Bigfoot slave labor, and that shoving a quartz crystal up your ass gave you mystic visions.
They say drugs were involved.
Yeah, it's like those funny smelling cigarettes that they told us were medicinal were actually just fat Bama hog legs of primo weed or something. There's a very good thread on Reddit about this in the topic r Ask a Historian, one of the most reputable of the Reddit forums. Quality contributor, meaning most folks around there did not find their submission to be complete and total bullshit, Mike Dash, gave a detailed explanation that largely follows the path I've laid out in this episode and expands in some areas I wasn't aware of, or if I was aware of them, I just found them too boring to make dick and fart jokes around. But I do include some of the conclusions that Mike Dash gave because they reinforce my primary point that there was money to be made by churning out mass market crap about and around the Bermuda Triangle. Quote, why then the 1970s? Once again, another one of those rich stews of causation is to blame. First, there were the writers around who saw potential in the Triangle stories and continued to elaborate it, introducing new cases and seeking out older ones that could be lumped into the casebook. Second, some of those writers came to the attention of publishers who began to work out that there was money to be made in publishing books of this sort. The 1960s and early 70s was a period in which counterculture books on a wide variety of strange phenomena clocked up some serious sales. Unlike the fairly mechanistic UFO mystery books of the 1950s, moreover, they did do by hinting at the existence of mysterious forces in place, strange conspiracies, hidden knowledge, mysterious causes, and connections that were only evident to initiates. And once the books were a success, TV was quick to jump in and follow. See Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World, Alan Landsberg's In Search Of series with its accompanying series of books. Books and TV shows alike had a clear commercial interest in presenting their topics as strange and mysterious, not mundane and inexplicable, as most of the losses associated with the Bermuda Triangle actually are, if examined carefully and dispassionately, unquote. Which I will now do in closing. Nothing that happened in the so-called Bermuda Triangle is at all unexplainable. Once you take out the supernatural, you remove Atlantis, aliens, dimensional vortices, time portals, aquatic Sasquatches, sea elves, ghost ships, and horny mermaids looking for landlubber dick, so what do you really have left? Stories of compasses going haywire are true, but those are entirely natural and happen in many, many, many places around the planet. For almost as long as humans have been navigating by compass, and that goes as far back as the 2nd century BCE, people have known about how to compensate for magnetic variances. It's well documented in ship's logs going back centuries. Then there's the methane bubble theory, in which a large amount of methane is suddenly released from the seafloor, causing a massive bubble that swallows ships and kills everyone on board. Now, those can happen, but according to the U.S. Geological Survey, none of them have happened in the Triangle area for over 15,000 years. And all that leaves us is the weather and plain old human fuckery. Perhaps the most famous incident involves the Navy flight of torpedo bombers that disappeared in 1945, flight number 19. That was all human fuckery. The training flight took off to teach the flyers dead reckoning, a navigational technique that's based on compass reading and elapsed time. Somewhere over the Atlantic, either there was a magnetic variance or more likely the flight lead reading the compass bearing fucked up, and they literally flew around in circles until running out of gas and crashing in the middle of nowhere. Shit like that just happens. It happens today, even with GPS location being ubiquitous. People trust their machines and their instruments over everything else, and then they wind up driving down a dirt road in the California desert coming back from a Formula One race in Las Vegas. Nothing supernatural about it at all, unless, of course, it is the beginning of the AI uprising. People like stories, and people like scary shit, so they merge those two and create scary stories that are complete and utter shit. Then people come along looking to make money off those stories, which makes the stories grow bigger. It's the byproduct of human nature running headlong into late-stage capitalism. This also explains why people take horse medicine, drink liquid silver, use real money to buy pretend internet money, and spend $400 on a $20 pair of sneakers from a bloated orange criminal. Though honestly, I will say if his jet took off from Mar-a-Lago and just disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle, no, never mind. In 2 hours, there'd be a rampant conspiracy theory that Joe Biden shot it down. So forget it. I'm sorry. God, he's back in the news, and I don't want to keep bringing him up, but he's always there. He's always there. Like that devil sea turtle in the Bermuda Triangle. He's always there. Sorry I even brought it up.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
This episode is brought to you by MeUndies. Underwear drawers are like the Wild West. You never know what you're going to pull out or what shape it's in. So upgrade your collection with the buttery soft comfort of MeUndies. MeUndies' signature fabric is as soft as a warm hug from your favorite sweater. Plus, it's breathable and oh so comfy, making it ideal for all-day wear. Get 20% off your first order, plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/Spotify with code SPOTIFY. That's MeUndies.com/Spotify, code SPOTIFY.
That is it for the show this week. Just a fun little show. Nothing weighty because we got some meaty stuff coming up in March that's going to take some time to write and research. This also means we're doing something late next week. But this one's going to be a super fun one. We're having a movie night featuring one of my favorite fucking movies of all time. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but if you want a hint, the teaser drop at the end of the show will tell you what you need to know. Speaking of spoilers, you could spoil us by rating and reviewing or sharing us with your friends. And hey, as this show goes live, big news for our network Seltzer Kings. Total network revamp, new shows, old shows, this show, because we have a contract and they couldn't get out of it. Told you not to mess with Fast Eddie's lawyers, Jeremy. Nah, I'm kidding. He wanted to keep us.
Huh. No accounting for taste.
Drop us $1 for all of our work at patreon.com/whatthehellpodcast. We're going to use that money to book one-way tickets for Gavin on an all-expense-paid booze cruise around the Bermuda Triangle.
Wait, what?
So for me, Dave, Bermuda Triangle, it makes people disappear. Bermuda Triangle, don't go too near Bledsoe. Producer,
no, I don't want to go to the Bermuda. Someone stop him.
Gavin, and all the fictional Atlanteans on this show, we want to say, Bermuda Triangle, here Gavin comes. And we'll see you all next week.
I say Barbados isn't bad. She says I'd love to see Bermuda, and I say, woman, are you mad? Bermuda Triangle, it makes people disappear. Bermuda Triangle, don't go too near, but she doesn't see my ankle.
What the Hell Were You Thinking stars Dave Bledsoe and features Gavin St. James and several fictional minions. The show is produced by Kimberly Steele and a part of the Seltzer Kings podcast network. You can find more information on the show on their website, whatthehellpodcast.com, or on Twitter at @thehell_podcast, or on Facebook as What the Hell Podcast. Thanks for listening.
I have no ending for this, so I take a small bow.
And the hits just keep on coming.
Seltzer Kings.
Podcasts.